This is truly brought back by popular demand, and I'm going to share some other stories. I decided what I want to share is, I spent a tremendous amount of time when I first started doing theater. I developed all my work in the streets and in the parks. Like, I found that it was really, really helpful to me to go out and do my memorizing and rehearsing out in the street, in the city, around all this craziness that would be going on around me. Even when I was living down in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where it was a pretty busy place, I just found that, oh Jesus, now the train's coming. I always thought it was a good idea. I started to learn that it was a good idea to be out in the world when I was learning my work, because I would just have a better command of the words that way. Like, with all the distractions around me, it just made me have to be really strong in my memorization and in my understanding of the story and the structure and the movement of the story. It just helped to have all this stuff going on around me, like real life, right? Like things happen in real life, and you have to be in the moment and stay in the moment and not just be, carried by the words, but by the actual events that are happening. The words almost disappear and they become more of a visual kind of exploration, which led me to filmmaking, by the way. But anyway, one of the first experiences I had where I started to actually engage with people, because I wasn't one of these artists like trying to go out and interrupt people's lives. Like, I didn't get on the train and go, ladies and gentlemen, look at me, I'm so awesome. Like, I tried to be really discreet. I tried to stay away from people. I tried to keep it private to myself. So one day, and this is, I guess, the first episode of this season of Stories in 4K, this took place in McCarren Park in Brooklyn, which is in a place called Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which is right on the border of Queens and also on the other side of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And sorry, somebody's walking back and forth in here, so it kind of took distracting me, which is the whole point of this, right? So anyway, I was in McCarren Park right near Williamsburg, and actually in Greenpoint near Williamsburg. I'm going to have to cut all that out. Anyway, I was at McCarren Park and I was rehearsing, and I was all by myself, and there's a big track there, and there's also a place called McCarren Pool, which at the time was closed. Since then, they've renovated it, and it's become a performance space where they do concerts. And so anyway, it was empty, and I went down to McCarren Pool because nobody would bother me. I used to jump down there and just rehearse all by myself, and nobody was around. And one day, this kid comes up to me, and he's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just rehearsing for a play." He's like, "Oh, damn. Can I watch?" And I was like, "Sure." And he goes, "All right, just wait. Like, give me like 5 minutes. I'll be right back." I'm like, "Yo, I'm not going anywhere." So I just figured he was going to get some food or maybe get his stuff, something like that. I don't know. Maybe he was walking his dog. I had no idea what the deal was. But anyway, he leaves, and I just continue doing my thing. And all of a sudden, this guy shows up with like 3 people, and then all of a sudden 5 people, and then all of a sudden 8, and he shows up with like 15 people. And this was in the summer, and they all had lawn chairs. And so they all came down, and they set up their chairs, and they just watched me rehearse, and they sat there for 2.5 hours while I did an entire version, a full-blown version of my play, Broke Wide Open, which was 2.5 hours, including an intermission. And I did it that day without the intermission. But anyway, we afterwards conducted kind of a impromptu Q&A. And it was just incredible. There were a couple of film students there. There was a theater student there. One of the kids there was studying to be a dramaturge. And I got some incredible feedback. We had some really deep conversations. The play was about my very ambivalent search for my biological mother. It was actually the first of a 3-part trilogy that I wound up working on for 17 years. And it was just an incredible experience because, it taught me, like, this is something that I can do to learn so much from and to get the absolute truth from people. Like, when you do shit like that in New York City out in the street or in a park or something like that, people are not going to, it's not like a formal theater setting and maybe people are showing up with their school. Like I had a performance once for the kids at Berkeley Rep at PS 122 on the Lower East Side. It was a reading of a bunch of plays, and I got to do the first half of Broke Wide Open at that time. And, but it was a more formal setting, theater students with their teacher. This was in the street in Brooklyn, in Greenpoint, in the middle of nowhere, basically, or out of nowhere. I guess you can't ever call anything in New York City in the middle of nowhere, but it was out of nowhere. And it was a remarkable experience, and it kind of started me on this journey of rehearsing all over the place, in all kinds of different places, and always having encounters with people, sometimes a lot of people and sometimes one person. But it was always followed up with a Q&A or just a discussion on the play. And I always had notes with me. I would write them down. I had a little notebook, a little day runner with an actual pen and paper. And I would take notes. And I'm telling you, I made a lot of changes in that play based on a lot of those conversations with people. And, the other amazing thing was that over the 5 years of developing that play, and I developed it for 5 full years all over the country, I made a lot of changes, like I said, based on those conversations. And what was really cool was a lot of those people wound up coming to the show 5 years later when I ran it off Broadway. I did 8 shows a week for 6 months, almost 6 months. And a lot of those people wound up coming back to see how it developed and what the final production was on this big stage with a beautiful set and light design and music and sound and the whole thing with a director and collaborators. And it was just a beautiful experience for a long period of time. And I actually wound up doing it all over the country. And obviously every place, every time that I did this, I got people to get on my mailing list. And so I developed this gigantic mailing list. And also people would come see me, like when I would perform. At the time I was in the poetry scene in New York City. So, I would do slams at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe and the Bowery and Bar 13. And, for those who know New York City, I'm sure you heard of those places. But if not, these were like very, very well-known poetry places where people would perform. What I was doing was taking pieces of my play and performing, but otherwise people were taking these amazing poems and having these slams and just sharing work with people. And it was just amazing to have people see me on the street and then come see me developing the work in these clubs, and then maybe come see other readings, like more developed workshops of the play, and then eventually seeing a final version. I mean, some people saw like 4, 5, 6 versions of the play until it was finally a fully developed play. I mean, there were people who saw Broke Wide Open 10 times. So that's the first story, McCarren Park. And it was an amazing experience, and it really started me on a journey that is just, will always be unforgettable to me, and probably the most profound developmental part of my journey as a theater artist, but also as a filmmaker, because, I would take notes on this stuff, and I would, think like, this is so incredible that people can envision what I explain to them. Like I used to think like, you had to be there. Like you can't really grasp what it felt like unless you were there, right? Like it's like, that's what theater is about. You can't really describe a play unless you were there. But then as I started to get into filmmaking, I thought, sure you can. You can describe it in any way that you feel is the best way to describe it, and then, leave some room for people to imagine whatever they want to imagine, like give you the space to kind of see things in a way that you want to see it too. So I'll explain it as best I can without going too far or being too literal, allowing you to participate in this process of sharing where I've been and what I've been through and how I put this work together and got it up on its feet, and how it all contributed to how, where I am right now, and how I got to this moment sharing this story with you here and now. So that's the end of the first one, and please subscribe And please hit the like button, and please maybe consider joining my Patreon. The names that you're seeing scrolling on the screen right now are my Patreon members and kind of my lifeblood, and just amazing people who, you know, are supporting my work as an independent artist. And I could never describe or explain what that means to me, and so I will leave that to your imagination to imagine what something like that feels like for an artist who's dedicating his entire life to his work, hoping to make some kind of real contribution to people. Because like I always say, I don't make art for me. I make it to share it. Like, I have this incredible craving to connect with people all the time. And so, you know, I love to write, I love to create characters, I love to create stories, I love to make shit up. But really, it's all in the spirit of getting to share it. You know, like, that's what really excites me. Like, whether it be live on stage or when I make a movie and, you know, I can have a screening and share it like that with people, or, you know, people stream it and then we go back and forth on emails. I just had a beautiful exchange this morning with this guy named Patrick Hessler from somewhere on the other side of the world. I think maybe Amsterdam. I'm not even sure where he lives. But he often sends me these incredibly generous, meaningful emails, and he's one of my Patreon members too, and he watched the entire miniseries of Brooklyn Quartet and just broke it down, and it's just such an honor for me that somebody actually takes the time to do something like that. So that's why I do the work. You know, that's what's, as I told him this morning, that's what's good nutrition for me, that I get to go back and forth with people about things that I create, and I get to learn so much and feel like, yeah, maybe I am having some kind of tiny little impact on this world. Maybe I am, through my art, through my work. Certainly what I'm trying to do. It's my intention. Trying my best. So thanks for watching this story in 4K. And on to the next one. There'll be a bunch of them. I'm not sure how many, but there'll be quite a few. So again, I'm shooting with the Panasonic S5. I'm using the 20 to 60 kit lens. I'm shooting at f11. I'm down here by the Hudson River in New York. And we'll see you next time. And that's the end of this particular video.